All right, guys. Yeah. So before we press play on this album, we really need to talk because I mean this isn't just another release. No, this is a comeback. We are talking about the Fray, band that defined an entire era. With songs like How to Save a Life and You Found Me. You know, emotional piano, raw lyrics, that signature sound, that just hits you in the chest. But here's the thing. It's been over a decade, since their last album, and in that time, a lot has changed, I must say. Most importantly, their original lead singer, Isaac Slade, is no longer, in the band. So now Joe Ken, has stepped up, as the lead voice, which completely changes the dynamic of what the Fray, may sound like, in my opinion. So going into this album, titled A Light That Waits, there are definitely, real questions, can they still capture that emotional depth they were known for? Will this sound like the Fray that we all remember, or something totally different? And most importantly, does this feel like a true evolution or just a nostalgia? Because the comeback albums, can go two ways. Either they remind you of why you love the artist, in the first place, or they just show you that the moment, has passed. But from what I've been hearing, this one, might be a little different. This might be a band that didn't just come back. They came back with something to actually say. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going in, with open ears, no expectations, just ready, to feel whatever, this album brings. If it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, we're going to talk about it, all right? So, once again, the Fray with the album, A Light That Waits. Looking at the track list on my Spotify, album, comes with 11 songs. Album was released on the 13th, in of this month, like almost like 2 weeks ago. I'm not too sure, but I'm not too late, I must say. But I'm super excited to actually be here and to be listening to an entire album from this band. This is actually my first time, even though, like I said, I've heard a couple of their music. So shout outs to the subscriber that actually prompted me that they have a new album out. Yes, super excited. Like I said, 11 songs. Spans a little over 35 minutes and 50 seconds to be exact. So we're about to go in. I'm super excited. I hope you are too. Listen to the song, I share my thoughts, and move on to the next until we are done with the entire album. So subscribe to the channel, join the family, all of the negativity up in here. The first song off of this album, titled A Light That Way, that's the title track. So have the lyrics pulled up, have a few facts in the pulled just in case I might need it for my interpretation, for my review, at the end of each song. So let's take a listen. The first song, A Light That Waits. Let's go. Yeah, let's go. Wow. Like this. Ooh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Every step that you take, you need a breakthrough. Wow. So your name in the clouds and you run out of town and start a new change. And you pray to God, cause you're standing alone here with love's gates. Oh baby, what went wrong? Oh, what went wrong? The desert now smells like rain. The desert now smells like rain. If dreams are far away, wow. There will be a light that Like this. Nice. I like this. Wow. Wow, guys, like this. Wow. When the dark is wide awake, there will be okay, guys, so that was the first song, the title song off of this album, A Light That Waits. And I have to say that I mean, what a way to actually kickstart, you know, a comeback album. You know, you guys heard the song, you know, we just listened to this song, and right away it definitely felt familiar, but not in a bad way. You know, there's something about that piano tone that I feel like instantly, you know, takes you back. I mean, if you've ever, you know, heard songs like, you know, How to Save a Life, you know, you already know the emotional lane they like to, you know, sit in. And I feel like this track, you know, leans right into that, you know, but with a more mature, reflective sort of energy. At the start, you know, it's very, very, you know, stripped down, you know, nothing overproduced, you know, nothing flashy, just the soft piano space and I mean vocals, you know, that I feel like a few, you know, kind of, you know, worn in, and you know, in a good way. Like there's history behind the voice, and you know, as someone hearing this for the first time, I actually, you know, appreciated that restraint. You know, I love the fact that it doesn't try to grab you, you know, lets you come to it. The vocals and the delivery, you know, did it for me, guys. The vocals, you know, felt honest, you know, more than impressive. You know, if that, you know, makes sense. I feel like this isn't, you know, about, you know, crazy vocal runs or, you know, showing off range. You know, to me, it's about, you know, emotion and storytelling. There is also a slight rasp, you know, a bit of vulnerability in there. And I feel like, you know, it makes the lyrics, you know, hit more naturally. You can definitely tell, you know, this is coming from a real place, you know, not just something written, you know, to sound deep. For the instrumentation and the build, guys, I loved it. Also, the Fray, though, I felt like they stuck, you know, to what they do best. I mean, piano-driven foundation. I mean, subtle drums, you know, that coming later, gradual, you know, build into a fuller chorus. And I feel like when the chorus hits, it doesn't explode. You know, it actually, you know, opens up. I mean, that's the best way to actually describe it. I mean, it feels like, you know, a release rather than, you know, a climax, you know, which definitely fits the message of hope the song, you know, is pushing, in my opinion. Yeah, so for the lyrics and then the message, I feel like this is where the song, you know, really, really lands. You know, on first listen, you can actually tell, you know, it's about, you know, going through, you know, something heavy, feeling lost or stuck, but still holding on to the idea that, you know, something, you know, better, you know, is coming. That line about, you know, a light that waits, I feel like, I mean, it's simple, but I mean, it sticks. You know, to me, it's the kind of phrase that feels personal, you know, depending on, you know, what you're going through. I mean, it's not overly poetic or complicated. You know, it's actually accessible, and I think that's why, you know, this one works. So, I mean, for my honest take, you know, on the first listen, what I liked, I mean, I liked the emotional authenticity. I mean, clean, classic, phrase sound. I mean, strong, relatable message. Chorus, that actually, grows on you. One might not hit everyone. It plays it safe, stylistically. Doesn't break new ground, musically. So, I mean, if you're not into slower, reflective songs, I feel like this might feel a bit mellow. Yeah. So for me, on a first listen, this feels like a quiet comeback statement. I mean, I love the fact that it's not trying to, reinvent, this band, the Fray. It's actually reminding you why people connected with them in the first place. And honestly, that works here. It's a kind of song that, probably hits even harder, on the second listen or maybe the third listen, especially, if you are, in your feelings. I'll definitely give this like a hard, 8, out of 10, I mean, just because it's not trying to be massive, it's just trying to be meaningful. And for me, it definitely lands. Guys, let me know what you think about this one down in the comment section. We're moving on to the second song titled Still Got You. Let's go. Yeah.
Neon glow in the late daylight, drifting all alone to the edge of the night. It's an empty town at the end of the line. Am I free now that my first dream died? If there's a door to heaven on the avenue,
Wow.
you're the door to heaven on the avenue.
Okay. Yeah, I like this. Still got you. Wow.
Shadows dancing in the midnight flame.
Wow.
Burning with the stars 'cause we stay up late.
Yeah.
Lips on the pillowcase. The season angel on a horse in this hurricane. If there's a door to heaven on the avenue,
Yeah.
door to heaven on the avenue, yeah. I still got you.
I like this part.
I still got you.
Okay.
I still got you. I still got you. On this broken avenue, I still got you. I've been chasing the sky my whole damn life.
Yeah.
It's crazy what you find when you close your eyes.
Wow. Wow, guys. I love this song. I really do love this song.
I still got you. I still got
Ooh.
I still got you. I still got you. On this broken avenue, I still got you.
Guys, like
I
this.
still got you.
Okay. Nice. All right, guys. So that was the second song, Still Got You. And I mean, you guys already noticed this was actually my first time, hearing this song, once again. And I'm not even gonna lie. I mean, it really, really hit me, in a really familiar but comforting way. I mean, right from the very start, you can feel that classic, Fray, DNA. I mean, that soft piano comes in, everything, felt a little fragile, a little reflective, and then the vocals, they land. And you as a listener, you immediately you are pulled into the emotion of it. I love the fact that it doesn't try too hard, and I mean I feel like that's actually what makes it work. What stood out to me instantly is how simple the message is. The message is, I still got you. Guys, don't mind my voice, but I love that. I mean, that line really, could have easily felt, repetitive, or basic, but the way, this band, they build around it emotionally definitely makes it genuine instead of generic. It's like, a quiet reassurance, in the middle of the chaos. I mean, not dramatic, not overproduced, just real. I mean, the verses, also felt very, very lonely and, cinematic, almost like, you are walking through something heavy. And then the chorus, opens up just enough to actually give you that sense of hope and connection. For the vocals, you can tell this is a slightly different era, for this band, like I mentioned earlier, but the emotion, is still intact. The vocal delivery isn't, about, showing off. To me, it's more about carrying the weight of the lyrics, and I definitely respect that a lot. There is also, a certain restraint in the performance. I mean, I love the fact that nobody is trying to, oversing. Nobody's trying to outshine the moment. Definitely feels like the band is serving the song, instead of, performing at you. I mean, if that makes sense. Yeah, for the production, I mean, production wise, I love the fact that this song leans into that piano driven, atmospheric sound that, they are known for. I mean, soft, piano foundation, once again, subtle build, with drums and guitars. I mean, clean, emotional layering, without clutter. I mean, it's not reinventing anything, but it doesn't need to. It stays in its lane and, I mean, execute it well. This song, feels like, holding on to, one person, when everything else is falling apart. It's not loud about it, it's not overly dramatic, it's just steady. And honestly, I feel like that's where, the strength is, So yeah, for my final thoughts, I mean, I would definitely say that, I mean, if you are expecting something groundbreaking, I mean, this might not be that, but if you're looking for something honest, something emotional and true to the phrase, identity, this absolutely delivers. It feels like a band that knows exactly, who they are. And, instead of chasing trends, they are leaning into, what they've always done best, making you feel something without forcing it. Guys, I love this song. I really, really did love it. So let me know what you think about this one down in the comment section, guys. We're moving on to the third song, titled Ice Cold Lakes. Yes, let's go. Wow. Okay.
Magic.
Okay.
Stuck in the same lane, fast on automatic.
Wow.
Trading innocence and trying to get ahead. Even if you're hanging on by a thread, let's run away. Don't let it fade. Still looking for the thrill of the chase. Made our mistakes, got more to make. Still looking for the thrill, I'm looking for the thrill of the chase.
Wow.
I miss the summer days when nothing counted.
Okay.
I miss the ice cold lakes.
Ice cold
keeping me
lakes.
grounded.
Let's go.
Just take me back to when I didn't have to try. No clouds were in the sky, no clouds were in my mind. Let's run away.
Okay.
Don't let it fade. Still looking for the thrill of the chase. Made our mistakes.
Yeah.
Got more to make. Still looking for the thrill. I'm looking for the thrill of the chase. Take me back to rolling hills, to anyone that lives there still. Take me back to how it feels. Take me back to ice cold lakes and Let's run away.
Whoa.
Don't let it fade. Still looking for the thrill of the chase. Made our mistakes. Got more to make. Still looking for the thrill. I'm looking for the thrill of the chase.
Wow.
Still looking for the thrill. I'm looking for the thrill of the chase.
All right, guys. So that was the third song, Ice Cold Lakes. And I have to say that if I'm being honest, this song, feels like one of those songs that doesn't try to, grab you instantly, but slowly pulls you in the longer that you actually sit with it. I mean, right from the jump, you get that classic Fray DNA, as always. I mean, the piano is definitely front and center, very straight back, very intentional. I love the fact that it's not overly produced, not trying to be trendy, but I feel like it just exists in that emotional space they've always owned so well. And I personally respect that, because a lot of bands lose that identity over time. Vocally, there is this quiet restraint. It's not about big vocal rounds as always, or power notes. To me, it's more about feeling. You can hear a kind of weariness in the delivery, like someone reflecting on life rather than reacting to it. I feel like that's where the song really hits for me personally. I mean, it feels lived in. The vibe, guys. I mean, this is not a hype track. This is a late night thinking so much kind of a song. It gives you nostalgia. It gives you emotional distance. That feeling of being stuck in your own thoughts. There's almost a sense of emotional numbness running through it, like you are watching your life instead of actively living it. And the title, Ice Cold Lakes, definitely fits that perfectly. I mean, it paints this image of something still deep and kind of isolating. One thing I like, is how the song doesn't rush itself. I love the fact that it starts off, soft and stays, controlled. I mean, the instrumentation gradually, fills out, but never, overwhelms. It definitely keeps that intimate atmosphere, all the way through. If anything, some listeners, to me might feel like, it plays a little, too safe. It doesn't have a huge explosive chorus or dramatic shift, but I think that's intentional. It's more about consistency of mood than big moments. So for my honest take, I would say that if you're expecting something like How to Save a Life or a big emotional peak, this song might feel a little understated. But if you're open to something more reflective, something more mature, this actually lands really well. So for my final thoughts, this song feels like a song that grows on you. Not that one you replay instantly, but the one you come back to later. When you are in your feelings. It's quietly powerful, not loudly emotional, and honestly, that kind of restraint takes the confidence. Yes. Let me know what you think about this one down in the comment section. I'm really enjoying the album so far. We are moving on to the fourth song, My Heart's a Crowded Room. Let's go.
I can't stop, but I'm racing. Shadow dreams that I'm chasing.
Yeah.
I come and go, but the wind it blows to you. I don't stay where my spark is. I tangle up in the darkness, but you bring the spring and the cherry trees to bloom. Pulling me closer, taking over. My heart's a crowded room. My heart's a crowded room. Standing next to you.
My Heart's a Crowded
My
Room.
heart's a crowded room.
Okay.
Kissing you on the find my place in this. Help
Okay.
me find the space in this. Help me find my way in this. Help
Wow.
me find my place in this. Help me find the space in this. My heart's a crowded room. My heart's a crowded room. Standing next to you. My heart's a crowded room.
Oh.
My heart's a crowded room. Help me find my way in. Help me find my place in. Help me find the space in. Help me
Wow.
find the space in this.
All right, guys. Yes, the fourth song, "My Heart's a Crowded Room." Guys, you know what? This one really caught me off guard, a little bit. I mean, going into this song, I was expecting that familiar, emotional pull, that I feel like they are known for, But what I didn't expect was how mature and reflective this felt, right from the start. The first thing that hits you, is the atmosphere. As always, it's got that classic, Fray DNA. I mean, soft piano, clean guitar layers, and a steady, almost heartbeat like kind of rhythm. But it definitely feels a little more open, a little more settled, not as heavy as some of their older stuff. I mean, still emotional in a very, very real way. And vocally, there's something really honest about the delivery here. I mean, it's not, oversung. It's not, trying to. It's not trying too hard. It's just feels lived in, like the kind of performance where the emotion isn't being pushed. It's just naturally there. Now lyrically, I feel like this is where the song really stands out. I mean, the whole idea of your heart being in a crowded room, that's such a strong metaphor. If you ask me personally, I mean, definitely paints that picture of having all these thoughts, feelings, memories, doubts, all coexisting at once. And then you bring someone into that space. That's deep. That's really deep, because I mean, it's not about being perfect for someone. It's about letting them in, despite the chaos. And I like the song, and I like the fact that the song doesn't try to resolve everything neatly. It's kind of sits in that space of uncertainty, but there is still a sense of the comfort running through it, especially when it leans into that connection with another person. Musically, I think the band really made a smart choice keeping things restrained, as always. The song builds, but it never explodes. It just gradually opens up. I feel like that gives the lyrics room to actually breathe, and it keeps the focus on the emotion instead of just chasing the big dramatic moments. Yes, I mean, if I'm being completely fair, completely honest, I mean, some listeners might feel like it plays things a bit safe. It doesn't reinvent the phrase sound in a major way, but at the same time, I don't think it's trying to. This feels more like a band that knows exactly what they are now, and I mean, they are leaning into that with so much confidence. So yeah, overall, after listening to this song, I have to say that I mean, this is one of those songs that grows on you. The more you actually listen, the more you sit with it. I mean, it's not trying to hit you all at once. It kind of sinks in, and by the end you realize it's less about a big musical moment and more about a feeling, that quiet, complicated human feeling of trying to make space in your heart for someone else. And honestly, that's something the Fray, this band, has always done well. And this track, proves, I mean, they still got, they still got it. Yeah, that's all I'm trying to say. Let me know what you think about this one down in the comment section, guys. We're moving on to the fifth song, Emerald. Let's go. Wow, this is going to be good. I can feel it already.
You came out of thin air. I must have done something right. Best times dreams come out of nowhere. Will you stay with me tonight?
Wow.
We can sing to the twin stars till the dark meets the light.
Okay.
We can dance in the dive bars, let the magic pull us tight. But a dream, it can be when you set somebody free.
Wow.
It's just you, it's just me, till you love somebody. You're the heart of my heart, and I'm never alone. All the dreams that you spark,
Wow.
yeah, set 'em in stone. My emerald, let's climb in the backseat, home with our silhouettes, and take a walk on the side streets. Say the words we kept under our
Wow,
breath.
I like this.
But a dream, it can be when you set somebody free. It's just you, it's just me, till you love somebody. You're the heart of my heart,
Wow, guys.
and I'm never alone. All the dreams that you spark,
Okay. Yeah.
stone. My emerald,
Emerald.
forever you know you're never alone, yeah.
Okay.
Forever you know you're never alone, my emerald. You're the heart of my heart.
My emerald.
You're the heart of my heart.
Guys, nice.
I'm never alone.
Okay.
All the dreams that you spark, yeah, set 'em in stone, set 'em in stone. My emerald,
Wow.
my emerald.
My emerald. Nice. All right, guys. Yes, the third song titled Emerald. And wow. Going into this song, I didn't really know, what to expect. I must admit, especially, knowing the band, is in a bit of a new era now. But I've really got to say, this track really, really, really surprised me in a subtle, slow burn, sort of way. I mean, right from the jump, the vibe, is very, very classic, Fray, as always. That, emotional, reflective tone, is still very, very much alive. You've got those, soft, piano textures, sitting, at the core, and everything else, kind of builds around it, in a really, really, smooth, almost cinematic, sort of way. I mean, it doesn't try to hit you, all at once. It kind of, push you gradually. And I personally actually respect that a lot. Vocally, this is interesting. This is really, really interesting. There is definitely, a different feel compared, to their older, tracks, their older hits. But it still carries that melancholic, sincerity the band, has always been known for. I also love the fact that it doesn't feel like, they are trying to copy the past. It feels more like, they are, evolving, whilst still holding on to that emotional DNA. And honestly, that balance isn't easy to actually, pull off, in my opinion. Lyrically, this song leans into this romantic, slightly dreamy space. I love the fact that it's not overly complex, but it doesn't need to be. It's more about the feeling than the detail, like being caught, in a moment, with someone, and just wanting to actually stay there a little longer. That emerald, imagery to me gives it this kind of glowing, almost a surreal emotional tone, which I, I thought was a nice touch. What stood out to me most, though, is the build of the track. It's not explosive, but it elevates. There is a point where everything sort of opens up, instrumentally and emotionally, and you as a listener, you really feel that lift. It's the kind of song that grows on you more, with each listen, rather than hitting instantly. If I'm being completely fair, if I'm being completely honest, I would say it's not their most powerful or unforgettable track on first listen. It doesn't have that immediate iconic hook like some of their older songs, but what it does have is atmosphere. It has maturity and intention, and to me it feels like a band that's not chasing hits, but creating a mood. So yeah, overall this song feels like a quiet statement, not loud, not flashy, but meaningful. It definitely shows that this band still knows how to tap into emotion, just in a slightly more refined and modern way. Definitely one of those songs you sit with, not just listen to. I love the guys. I really loved it. Yeah, so we move on to the said song titled Wherever You Reach For Me. Let's go.
Maybe you're feeling shaky, maybe you're feeling anxious.
Okay.
You're fighting against the current,
Yeah.
in a sink or swim. Maybe you're feeling nothing, maybe you're really struggling. You're trying to find a meaning in the meaningless. Take your time, take a breath, let yourself be a mess. Dance to the beat in your chest. When your dreams feel too big,
Yeah.
the stars seem too high. When it's easy to quit,
Whoa.
but it's too hard to try. I've been where you are, so baby, you know where I'll be. Wherever you reach for me. Ooh, yeah.
Okay.
Ooh, yeah. You could be on a mountain, everyone singing praises. That's when it hits the hardest. It's a long way down.
Yeah.
When you hit rock bottom, oh, what a beautiful problem. But you get another turn on this merry-go-round. Take your time, take a breath.
Wow.
Let yourself be a mess. Dance to the beat in your chest. When your dreams feel too big and the stars seem too high. When it's easy to quit, but it's too hard to try.
Okay.
I've been where you are, so baby, you know where I'll be. Wherever you reach for me, go find your life.
Okay.
And find your way home.
Yeah.
When you get lost, you're never alone. I've been where you are, so baby, you know where I'll be. Wherever you reach for me.
Okay. Whoa. Wow, guys, I like this. Okay.
You're never alone. I've been where you are, so baby, you know where I'll be. Wherever you reach for me.
All right, guys. Yes, that's it. Song Wherever You Reach For Me. Once again, going into this song, I really didn't, know what to expect. But within the first few seconds, it felt like, yeah, I mean, this is the Fray, in their natural elements. I mean, right from the first listen perspective, what immediately stood out to me is how stripped back and intentional, everything felt. I mean, the piano, comes in soft and almost fragile. And to me, it sets this, reflective tone right away. I mean, it's not trying to impress you. It's really going in. It's trying to reach you. and that difference matters, in my opinion. What hit me early is also the emotional honesty. I mean, there is no overproduction here, no flashy moments, just a steady build that I feel like I lets the lyrics breathe all the way through. The vocal delivery also felt very, very I mean, conversational, almost like someone talking to you, rather than performing at you. And that's something I feel like at this band have always done so well. I mean, think along the lines of how to save a life. That same quiet intensity is here, but maybe a little more mature, in my opinion. A little more but maybe a little more mature, a little more grounded. Vocally, I feel like this is more about control than power. There aren't huge belted notes or dramatic runs. Instead, it's subtle shifts in tones to that I feel like I carry the emotion. You can hear the weariness and reassurance in the voice. Definitely feels lived in, not overly polished. There is also a sincerity that makes the message believable. It honestly sounds like someone who's been through something and is now trying to pull someone else through it. Yeah, musically, this song stays pretty minimal, I must say. I mean, as always, piano driven foundation, light ambient textures in the background, gradual layering, but never overwhelming. To me, the build is slow, but definitely intentional. It doesn't explode. I feel like it unfolds, and depending on your taste, that could either feel deeply immersive or maybe a little too safe. Yeah, lyrically, this is classic in the Fray territory. There's no denying that. I mean, struggle, vulnerability, and a bit of connection. The core idea seems to, revolve around, I mean, feeling lost or unstable, reaching out in difficult moments. I mean, someone, being there no matter what. I mean, it's not overly complex or poetic, but it doesn't need to be. I mean, the strength here is in how relatable and direct it is. So for my honest take, I mean, what really worked for me well, after listening to the song is the strong emotional authenticity. I mean, clean, focused production, relatable team that I feel like lands without trying too hard. What might not work for everyone is that, as always, I mean, it plays pretty safe. No big surprises. I mean, to me, if you are looking for a standout hook or climax, this song is more subtle than explosive. I mean, could feel familiar if you follow the band for years. Yeah, so for my final thoughts, I must say that I mean, at the end of the day, wherever you reach for me, this song isn't trying to reinvent anything, and honestly, it doesn't have to. This feels like a comfort song, the kind you put on when you are in your thoughts, when things feel uncertain, or when you just need something steady in the background. It may not be the most dynamic track on this album, but to me it's one of those that connects quietly, and sometimes that hits even harder. I loved it, guys. Yeah, let me know your thoughts about this one down in the comment section. We are moving on to the 7th song title, Let Me Go First. Let's go. Okay, guys, I feel this one is going to be good. Wow.
An ordinary day.
Whoa.
That starts just how they do.
Okay.
And your life's about to change.
Yeah.
But you still got no clue. Eyes catching. Time flashes by. Suddenly,
wow, guys, this is solid.
my knees begging, take me instead of. I hope I'll never live long enough to lose you. If you're gonna leave us, baby, let me go first.
Ooh.
Is it wrong that I would choose to break your fall just to trade who's crawling out to God and moving on?
Yeah.
Cause I won't make it through if I ever live long enough to lose you. If you're gonna leave us, then baby, let me go first.
Okay. Baby, let me go first.
Baby, let me go first.
Guys, I like this. So smooth.
I dreamed about your face before I knew how to.
Yeah.
And now I got a taste. There ain't no sky without you. One last breath, your hand in mine.
Yeah.
It's inevitable, invincible. So when it's time to fly, I better never
Wow.
live long enough to lose you. If you're gonna leave Earth, baby, let me go first. Is it wrong that I would choose to
Wow.
break your fall just to trade who's calling? So gotta moving on.
Okay.
'Cause I won't make it through if I ever live long enough to lose you. If you're gonna leave Earth, baby, let me go first.
Yeah.
Baby, let me go first.
Yeah.
I bet I'll never live long enough to lose you.
Wow.
Is it wrong that I would choose to break your fall just to trade who's calling out? So gotta move
Yeah.
on. 'Cause I won't
Background
make
vocals.
it through if I ever live long enough to lose you. If you're gonna leave Earth, baby, let me go first. Baby, let me go first.
Wow. Wow. Ooh. All right, yes, the seventh song, Let Me Go First. Guys, if this is your first time hearing this song, just like myself, I have to say that this one, hits you in a very, very familiar but still powerful way. I mean, right from the start, there is that signature Fray atmosphere. As always, soft piano, space in the mix, and a kind of emotional way that just sits with you. I must say, what stood out to me immediately, listening to the song, is how restrained the song is. Love the fact that it doesn't rush. It doesn't try to overwhelm you with, big production. Instead, it leans into subtlety, and that actually makes the emotions feel more real. You can tell this is one of those songs that's more about feeling than showing off. Vocally, there is the vulnerability here that really carries the track. I must say the delivery isn't overly polished or dramatic, and it feels honest, almost like someone processing something in real time, and that really works perfectly with the theme. The title, Let Me Go First, already hints at sacrifice or emotional surrender, and you can hear that in the tension in the performance. The instrumentation builds gently as the song progresses. I must say, it's but it never explodes into something huge. Instead, it stays controlled, which gives the lyrics still more space to she'll actually breathe. I feel like that's something this band have always done so well. They know when to hold back, and and in this track, that restraint is actually what makes it hit. Now, if I'm to be fair, this isn't a song that's going to surprise you. If you followed this band for years, it definitely lives comfortably within their established sound. But at the same time, there is a maturity here. It feels less like heartbreak, drama, and more like reflection, like someone who's been through it before and understands what letting go really means. Emotionally, the song lands in that sweet spot space. It's not just sad, it's accepting. And I feel like that's what gives it replay value. It's the kind of track, you don't just listen to once, you sit with it. So yeah, overall, baby, let me go first. This is a solid, heartfelt entry you know, from this band. You know, it doesn't reinvent their sound, you know, that's for damn sure, but it doesn't need to. You know, it definitely reminds you why people, you know, connected with them, you know, in the first place. You know, honest emotion, simple arrangements and songs, you know, that, you know, feel like, you know, they understand you. I loved it, guys. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think about this one down in the comment section. We're moving on to the 8th song, Songs I'd Rather Not Sing. Wow, let's go.
Got alive and it's my first time living. Got eyes, but that don't mean I have vision. Some days just getting through is winning. Some days you just say good riddance. Got a heart, but it's my first time feeling. Got a flow that used to be my ceiling. Some people have a way of reaching all the parts you have a hard time seeing. It isn't easy, isn't fair, but it's everything. I've been there before, screaming outside, closing doors, sting in my eyes. There's some songs I'd rather not sing. The end of the day, I wouldn't change a thing, 'cause stars might have been what my heart needed more than a sunny day drive. Funny how life's a coin with two sides, breaks you and loves you at the same damn time.
Whoa.
There's a moon, there's a new sun rising. In the records, there's a truth worth finding. If I failed, it just means I tried it. Got scars, just means I survived it. It isn't easy, isn't fair, but it's everything. I've been there before.
Okay.
Screaming outside, closing doors, sting in my eyes. There's some songs I'd rather not sing.
Yeah.
The end of the day, I wouldn't change a thing, 'cause storms might have been what my heart needed more than a sunny day drive. Funny how life's a coin with two sides, breaks you and loves you at the same damn time. I've been there before, screaming outside, closing doors, sting in my eyes. There's some songs I'd rather not sing.
Okay, yes. Songs I'd Rather Not Sing, the 8th song, you know, off of this album. And man, I have to say this one, you know, hits in a very, very quiet, in a sort of way. I mean, going into this song, I wasn't expecting anything overly dramatic, you know, but what I got instead was something, you know, a lot more personal and reflective. You know, I mean, this feels like the Fray leaning into what they've always done best, and just more grown, more lived in. Right off the bat, the piano comes in soft and steady, and to me, it immediately, you know, sets the tone. I love the fact that, you know, he's not trying to grab you aggressively. You know, it kind of invites you in, and that's something I really appreciate, because to me, it gives the lyrics, you know, room to actually breathe. And speaking of the lyrics, I mean, this song, you know, is heavy, you know, but not in a depressing, you know, sort of way. It's more like, you know, looking back, you know, at the parts of your life, you know, you don't necessarily want to revisit, you know, but you know, they made you, you know, who you are. That idea, you know, of songs, you know, you'd rather not sing, you know, is such a, you know, powerful metaphor, in my opinion. Like, the words, you know, actually mean something. That is what sells, you know, a track like this. What I also liked is how the song, you know, builds subtly. You know, it doesn't explode in some huge, you know, chorus. Instead, you know, it kind of, you know, rises and falls like real emotion does. You know, it keeps things, you know, grounded, which, you know, honestly makes it, you know, hit harder. If I'm being completely fair, I mean, this isn't the kind of track that's going to instantly grab casual listeners, you know, looking for something big and catchy. You know, it's more of a, you know, slow burn, you know, sits with it type of song. But I mean, if you give it time, it really, really connects. So yeah, overall, I feel like this song, feels like the Fray, staying true to the identity, but doing it with a little more maturity and reflection. It's not trying to be flashy. It's not trying to be real. And for me, that authenticity, it is exactly what makes this one sticks. Yeah, let me know what you think about this one down in the comment section, guys. We move on to the ninth song, titled Tasted Glory. Let's go.
Chasing gold out on the coast.
Okay.
On a river no one floats.
Yeah.
Treading water, sinking down. You were sunlight on the phone.
Wow.
In a week I had to know. Had my feet up off the ground. And clocks keep freezing. Time's been losing all control. Forget everything you know. Ain't it crazy in a year how we ended up here? And with you I finally tasted glory. Yeah, we both got it wrong, but
Okay. Yeah.
And with you I finally tasted glory. One and one was never three. Maybe all I did was blink.
Yeah.
And it turned me inside out. I swear to God, I swear I knew you long before I ever knew you. Somewhere in another life, it was you and I, and we're still right here tonight. Ain't it crazy in a year how we ended up here? And with you I finally tasted glory.
Tasted glory.
Yeah, we both got it wrong, but it pointed us home. And with you I finally tasted glory.
Wow.
Tasted glory. Clouds keep freezing over. Time's been losing all control. Forget everything you know. Ain't it crazy in a year how we ended
Wow.
up here?
This is nice.
And with you I finally tasted glory. Yeah, we both got it wrong,
Wow.
but it pointed us home. And with you I finally tasted glory. Tasted glory.
All right, guys. Yeah, so that was the ninth song, titled Taste of Glory. I mean, this song felt like one of those tracks that quietly sneaks up on you rather than hitting you instantly. And honestly, I think that's part of its strength. From a first listen perspective, I mean, the vibe is very, very reflective. It doesn't come in loud or overly dramatic. Instead, I love the fact that it leans into that classic Fray identity. I mean, soft piano textures, steady pacing, and a vocal delivery that feels more lived in than polished. There is also a maturity here. You can definitely hear that this isn't a band trying to recreate their old sound, but rather one that's grown in something a bit more introspective. Lyrically, Tasted Glory seems to revolve around the idea of chasing something success, purpose, maybe even a validation. And then, sitting with that, it actually feels like once you've had it. I mean, there's also a subtle, emptiness in the way, the lines are delivered. Like it's not about, the high, of glory, but the aftermath, of it. I mean, that emotional contrast is where the song really, really lands, I must say. Performance wise, what stood out to me most was the restraint. Nobody is over singing, nothing felt forced. The vocals, carry a slightly worn, almost fragile, quality at times, which I mean actually works, in favor of the message. It makes everything feel more believable. The instrumentation also stays pretty minimal throughout, but I feel like that space allows the emotions to breathe all the way through. You are not distracted. You are just pulled in. Now, if I'm being completely fair, this isn't the kind of track that's going to immediately grab everyone. It's not a big explosive anthem either, and it doesn't have that instant hook that some listeners might expect. I mean, for some people, it might even feel a little too understated on first listen. But I mean, if you give it a moment, if you really, really sit with it, it starts to unfold in a more meaningful way. Yeah, guys, overall, I have to say that Tasted Glory feels like a quiet statement piece. It's less about impressing you and more about connecting with you, and in a way that makes it one of those songs that could age really, really well, the more you come back to it. I mean, it's definitely reflective, a bit melancholic, and very, very human. And honestly, that's exactly where the Fray tend to shine, I must say. Yeah, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think about this one down in the comment section, guys. We are moving on to the 10th song, titled After You Only God. Let's go. Okay. Sounds
She's
familiar.
waving my shirt like a queen with a golden crown. She sings to the sky as she drives with her windows down. She loves all her friends and she said you should come hang out. To dream next to you now is all I can think about. Oh, after you is only God.
Whoa.
No higher mountains, no brighter star.
After you, there's only God.
No softer hands to catch my fall. 'Cause after you, only God.
Whoa, that's deep.
We walk in the forest and listen to the trees talk. We lay in the sun, feel the breeze on the wooden dock. Reminisce about the trip where we walked the streets of Spain. This love is a garden, a color from the pain.
Okay.
'Cause after you, only God.
After you, only God.
No higher mountains, no brighter star. No softer hands to catch my fall. 'Cause after you, only God.
Wow. Nice, I like this. Yeah. Okay. Okay, guys. Yes, the 10th song, After You, Only God. I have to say that, I mean, right from the start, you can definitely feel, as always, you can feel that signature Fray DNA. I mean, as always, soft piano foundation, the space, in the production, and that emotional weight, sitting underneath everything. But at the same time, I feel like this doesn't feel like, they are trying to recreate the past. It feels older, feels wiser, and a little more worn, in a good way. What really, really stood out to me first was the, vocal delivery. I love the fact that it's not overly dramatic and or trying to force emotion. It's actually pretty restrained, and because of that, it feels more real. There is this sense of acceptance, in the performance. Like someone who's been through something heavy and is now just sitting with it rather than fighting it. The lyrics also go in, they lean into something deeper too. The title alone, After You Only God, already suggests the themes of loss, devotion, or putting someone, on that almost untouchable level. And the way the song unfolds, guys, it doesn't feel preachy or overly religious. It feels personal. Like it could mean different things. Depending on what you've been through. Musically, I like that. They didn't over complicate it. It's very very stripped back. Piano driven. I mean, slow build, and to me, it gives the song room to actually breathe all the way through. There isn't any big and explosive moments, but honestly, this song doesn't need it. The emotional payoff, is more subtle. It kind of creeps up on you instead of hitting you, all at once. So yeah, guys, if I'm being fair though, this might not be a song for everyone. I mean, if you're a music enthusiast and you are looking for something instantly catchy or hook heavy, this probably isn't that. It's more of a sit with it, late night, kind of track. The kind you don't fully feel until you are in the right headspace. But that's also where its strength is. This feels like the Fray leaning into maturity over nostalgia. I mean, it's not trying to be how to save a life 2.0. It's something quieter, more introspective, and honestly more personal. So yeah, guys, I mean, overall, this is one of those songs that grows on you the more you listen. Not because I mean it changes, but because you meet it differently each time you hear it. I don't know if that makes sense. Yes. Let me know what you think about this one down in the comment section, guys. We are moving on to the final song, titled Sea Level Drive. Let's go.
I spent the day with ice in my veins.
Okay. Whoa.
Out of my depths, fighting the waves. I chase and I chase with nothing to show, just the blue water. I'm on my way home. I'm on my way home.
Okay, I'm on my way home.
So I'll rest my weary bones. I'll see how far I've gone, and I'll try again tomorrow. And I'll let the sun shine over me, come and dry these tired wings, and I'll fly again tomorrow. Coming unstuck, deep from the mud. Running like hell, I don't know where from.
Yeah.
I chase and I chase with nothing to show. As soon as I settle, it's time to go. It's time to go. So I rest my weary bones. I'll see how far I've gone.
Yeah.
And I'll try again tomorrow. And I'll let the sun shine over me. Come and dry these tired wings.
Yeah.
And I'll fly again tomorrow.
Okay.
We sit out and wait for light. These pretty blue, these crying eyes. It's coming, it's no surprise. We're floating on the city lights. And I'll rest my weary bones. I'll see how far I've gone. And I'll try again tomorrow. And I'll let the sun shine over me. Come and dry these tired wings. And I'll fly again tomorrow. And I'll fly again tomorrow.
Guys, yes, so that was the final song of this album, Sea Level Drive. And you know what I really, really appreciate about this track? Fact that it doesn't try too hard. You know, I mean, Sea Level Drive, feels like one of those songs that just quietly push you in instead of demanding your full attention. I mean, right from the very first few notes, that soft piano absolutely came in, set the tone, and instantly you can tell this is going to be more of an emotional ride than a big dramatic anthem. What stood out to me right away is how restrained everything was. The Fray could have easily built into something huge or explosive, but I mean they chose to keep it intimate, and honestly that works in the song's favor. It feels personal, almost like you are sitting alone at night and just letting your thoughts catch up with you. Vocally, there's a real sense of wariness and honesty in the performance. It's not overly polished or showy. It actually sounds like someone who's been through something and is just trying to process it. That emotional weight carries the whole track, in my opinion. You actually believe what you are hearing. Lyrically, it leans into that idea of being overwhelmed, like you're fighting through life, getting knocked down, but still finding a reason to actually keep going. I mean, it's not dramatic in a look at me sort of way. It's more subtle, more reflective, and I think that's why it really, really hits. It feels so real. Now, if I'm to be fair, this isn't a song that this isn't a song that's going to grab everyone immediately. It's slow, it's understated, and it doesn't have that big hook that sticks in your head right away. But I think that's intentional. This feels like a grower, if that makes sense. You know, the kind of track that gets better, you know, the more, you know, you sit with it. Production wise, I have to say everything, you know, felt clean and spacious. You know, nothing felt overcrowded. Every element, you know, has room to actually breathe, which matches, you know, the emotional tone perfectly. Yeah. So overall, Sea Level Drive, you know, feels like the Fray, you know, leaning back into, you know, what they do best. You know, honest, piano-driven storytelling with real emotional depth. You know, it's not, you know, trying to reinvent anything. You know, it's just, you know, doing it well. And sometimes, you know, that's exactly what you want, guys. I loved it. I really, really, really loved this song. So we are done. We are done with listening to this album, you know, a light that weight, you know, from front to back. And I have to say that, you know, now that we've started with it, you know, from start to finish, we definitely have to talk about it, because to me, this is one of those albums that doesn't just play. You know, it lingers. This album, you know, feels like growth, in my opinion. You know, not forced growth, not let's, you know, chase trends, you know, sort of growth. You know, real, lived in, you know, we've been through life, you know, kind of growth, if that makes sense. And I feel like that's the biggest difference here. This is not, you know, the same band that made, you know, How to, you know, Save a Life. You know, this is a band that's older, that's quieter, more reflective, and honestly more intentional. For the vocals, we definitely have to, you know, address it straight up. I mean, Joe Kin, you know, as the lead voice, I mean, at first, yeah, I mean, it feels different. You know, you notice it's immediately, but, you know, as the album goes on, it starts to, you know, actually make sense. His voice isn't as souring or dramatic, you know, as Isaac Slade's, but I feel like it brings something else. You know, it brings warmth, it brings a grit and honesty. And on songs like, you know, Let Me Go First and My Heart's a Crowded Room, that rawness, you know, actually makes the, you know, emotions, you know, hit harder. I mean, this wasn't about replacing the voice. No, it to me, it was about redefining, you know, the identity. Yeah. I mean, for the songwriting and the lyrics, I feel like this is where the album really, really shines. You know, I mean, these aren't just songs. You know, these are reflections, you know, themes all over this album. You know, I feel like we have themes of, I mean, time passing, relationships, you know, evolving, you know, letting go, I mean, faith and meaning, you know, looking back without, you know, pretending everything was perfect. I mean, certain tracks like, you know, songs I'd rather not sing, you know, feel almost meta, you know, like they are confronting their own past. We have songs, another song like After You, Only God, you know, that song, you know, I feel like it taps into something deeper, you know, almost unspiritual. And the final song off of this album, you know, Sea Level Drive, you know, closes everything with this quiet acceptance that just, you know, sits with you. There's no over explaining here, you know, no dramatic overselling, just an honest writing. For the production and the sound, guys, I loved it. I mean, production wise, the album is clean, you know, not flashy, not overproduced, definitely gives space. And that space, you know, is important because to me, it lets the emotions, you know, breathe all the way through. You've got soft piano foundations. I mean, that's just the classic Fray DNA. We have a subtle build, you know, instead of explosive drops. We have atmospheric layers that, you know, create mood rather than noise. To me, this album, you know, isn't trying to overwhelm you. You know, it's actually trying to connect. Yeah. Standout moments for me personally. I mean, the emotional weight, you know, in this song, Let Me Go First, you know, probably one of the most, you know, vulnerable tracks on the album, in my opinion. I also love the concept behind this song, you know, songs I'd rather not sing, you know, super self-aware and powerful, in my opinion. I loved the atmosphere in, you know, ice cold lakes. You know, you can literally feel the distance in that track. Finally, I love the closing feeling, you know, of I mean, Sea Level Drive. You know, I mean, it's peaceful, it's reflective, and a perfect ending, in my opinion, guys. Yes. For strengths, I love this album for its, you know, honesty. I mean, mature, songwriting. I mean, strong emotional consistency, cohesive album experience. I mean, this is meant to be listened to in front to back. I also love the fact that this album, goes more into a successful transition, into a new era. Yeah, for weaknesses, I'm definitely going to keep it real. Not a lot of big hit moments, in my opinion. I mean, this isn't a single heavy sort of album. I mean, if you are expecting the old Fray sound, this might feel slower or more subdued. Some tracks blend together on first listen because of the consistent tone. Yeah, but all in all, it's a pretty good album. Yeah, so for my final verdict, I have to say that this is not a nostalgia album. This is a reflection sort of album, and I feel like that is what makes it special. It doesn't try to recreate the past. It doesn't try to compete with today's trends. It just exists. Honestly, it just exists, and I loved it. I mean, and in the music industry that's constantly chasing attention, that's actually refreshing, in my opinion. Yeah. Now, so yeah, that's just what I think about this album. Definitely a good listen. Now, I really, really want to hear from you guys. I really, really want to hear what you guys also have to say. Did this album meet your expectations? I mean, how do you feel about the new direction of this band, the Fray? And which song are you going back to after this? I'm definitely going back to Baby Let Me Go First. Yes, that's just me. Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's just talk about it. If you enjoyed this reaction, if you enjoyed this breakdown, like this video, comment your favorite moments, subscribe for more real music reactions. Yes, a light that waits doesn't chase you down. I mean, it sits with you, and the more time you give it, the more it gives back. I'll definitely catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.